Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Randall Richmond, and I'm the Director of Athletics here at Kent State University and a proud graduate of the NCAA Charles Wickham Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute helped me refine who I was as a man well before focusing on who I was as an administrator. Within the program, I developed lifelong friendships, colleagues, and confidants to help me discover my true purpose in this profession, which is to be a transformational leader that has a positive impact on people's lives well beyond sports. And as the great orator Big Sean often says, the energy you give is what you manifest. Peace.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. This episode was recorded at the 2024 NACDA convention, and it features Kortne Gosha, who at the time was Deputy Athletic Director at Tulane. He's currently in senior leadership at Nebraska. He's interviewed by Wesley Abercrombie, who was a Vice President at Peak Sports Management. Take it away, Wesley.
What's going on, everyone? This is Wesley Abercrombie, Vice President for Peak Sports Management, filling in for Ty Brown at today's episode of One Question Leadership Podcast. Be sure to follow on Instagram and X. That's 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Kortne Gosha. I've worked with you personally in previous institutions, and excited to have you. So, started off in operations. Now you're known as an expert capital projects, revenue generator. I could talk about that all day. Today's focus is going to be leadership. I'm excited to talk to you. So just my first question is, so now you're deputy athletic director. So when you come in and you're new into a position and you've got a staff that you're responsible for overseeing, that you didn't necessarily hire or bring on board, how do you come in and effectively lead and inspire your group that you inherit to buy into the vision of where you want to take the department?
Well, great question. And Wesley, I really appreciate you having me. I would first say that I am no expert, right? I know just enough to be dangerous. But very good question. And I would say that when you're tapped or appointed to a position or selected as a candidate to hold a role in leadership, I think the first thing that you have to do is you have to learn how to be a great listener, and then evaluate opportunities, weaknesses, the strengths of the players that you have on your team, right? And I'm a firm believer, whether it's an AD job or a deputy AD job, everybody kind of gets this 90-day window. After 90 days, they're yours. They're not anybody else's. And so whether they were there that predate you, or they came in with you, after that 90-day mark. And so I think you have to evaluate talent and understand what categories they're in. Are they a rock star? Are they a rising star? Do they need some coaching and polishing and grooming? Or quite frankly, sometimes you got to move players on the bus or sometimes off the bus, right? And I think that's one of the unique characteristics of leadership. But that's a process you don't want to rush. You want to take your time and give people an opportunity to really understand who you are and your level of expectations and the standard in whatever role that you're in. And then obviously you've got to do a good job of demonstrating that standard as well.
Gotcha. And so how do you determine whether someone's a superstar or a rock star? Let's talk about that. See, so there's a difference, right? I know the book you're referring to, I think. So what's the difference between a superstar and a rock star?
So, I think that every organization has, people with different characteristics, right? And, I tell people all the time, I'll take a hungry person over a talented person any day, because that hungry person is going to work relentlessly to work on their craft and to become an expert in their space and to be really a life learner. I think those things are important. I tell people I strive to learn something new every day. People say you're an expert or you've done this and I really not. I think that I've been blessed and fortunate to work for very dynamic individuals, and I've taken characteristics from each of them. I think that's very important, as you build out yourself and define the space that we live in. I would also say identifying people who want to be there. There's a lot of people who say, I have to go to work. I have to be there from this time to this time, not a second more, right? And, in some roles, in some capacities, that's an acceptable characteristic and all those type of things. And you want to make sure that you do have people that check the box. But I look for those people who go, beyond their job description, who are really engaged in the success of your organization, your department, those type of things. And so trying to find people who exemplify those types of characteristics is really, really important. And I think you can start to then see the difference between, team players and people who want more in this industry. You look for those people who strive to be in your seat. I tell people all the time that, as an athletic director or deputy athletic director, you want to have people in your staff that say, I want your job, right? And I personally enjoy sharing my experiences and in my craft with them, because I think it's no greater joy for an athletics director to really see that tree, or deputy AD, see their tree grow and to see people that have worked for them ascend to roles, far beyond, that we could have imagined. And so, for an example, when I started my career in equipment, and I have a number of students that worked for me who are now NFL equipment guys, head guys, and my graduate assistant at the time when I was at Middle Tennessee, now Larry Maples at Middle Tennessee, he's the number 2 and really overseeing all their capital and things of that nature. And so those type of things give me great joy. And I think that's one of the things, and that's part of my why and why I got in the industry.
So a lot of people look at your role and they want to be in it, like you just mentioned. So you have a job that a lot of people want. You also have an interesting, going back to equipment, because there's a lot of people listening to this that if they want to be in your shoes, what's the best advice you could give them to get to where you've gotten? And talk a little bit about where you started, because I think it's unique.
So I challenge people in the industry, be careful what you ask for. Yes, these jobs are phenomenal jobs. A lot of times, you're a high level decision maker. Things are shared with you sometimes that you've got to hold, for yourself. And then you've also got to not only understand the vision, you're responsible for executing in a lot of categories. And so, again, your hours aren't traditional. Your time, your schedules aren't traditional. Depending on what's happening. And I'll use this previous year. We had just completed an AD search. I was right in the middle of that thing, and obviously I did not get the job, but I had kind of had to stay in my role and continue to do the things that made the organization successful. And so within maybe a week and a half, we're in a head football coaching search. And so, from my perspective, running the day-to-day of the department, kind of keeping things together, onboarding a new boss, but then also searching for a new leader of a high-profile sport. And so it was maybe about 5 days there where, I kind of went in stealth mode, wasn't returning phone calls, wasn't returning emails because, hey, we're, evaluating data and having conversations, talking to agents, talking to ADs, talking to presidents. And it was again, kind of a crazy period of time. But nevertheless, we ran the football coaching search, and then 5 days later, we announced the football coach and had the new AD, and in negotiating contracts of staff that's leaving and staff that's onboarding. And so again, any given day, you don't really know what your job is going to be in these type of roles. But I think that you have to learn, you have to be malleable. Sometimes you're gonna, you're gonna be stretched really thin, and there's sometimes where, hey, you got it going. And I think surrounding yourself with good people on your team is a key aspect that allows you to go missing in action when it's time for things like that, and that the organization doesn't miss a beat. And I think having people that you can work with that complement your weaknesses has been, I think, something personally for me that's been great. And so I tell young administrators, do the same thing. Find someone who can complement your weaknesses. When I was at Florida A&M, Keith McClooney, my deputy athletic director, He's probably one of the most regimented, rigid. Hey, you got to be here at this time, and we're leaving now, right? And you've got to have those type of people around you to make sure that the vision, the overall, approach that you're trying to demonstrate top down is effective leadership. And to understand that it doesn't, it's not just you. It takes a lot of people to really drive and turn these ships the direction that they need to go. But having the ability to communicate vertically and horizontally is very important. 1 minute you may be talking to a university president and board chair. The next minute you may be talking to the person that oversees your custodian, right? And those approaches, those conversations, the topics may be different, but the tone, the temperament, the cultural understanding has to be the same.
Yeah. Okay, so you have some people that play to your weaknesses, you play to their strengths, and that collaboration is great. So how do you handle that, the other side of that, when maybe you step into the position and there's somebody who's just not getting on board with your vision or the department's vision? How do you handle that, and how do you try to inspire that person? Because when I've worked with you for a few years now, everyone, from my standpoint, I see around you, your relationship with them is phenomenal. So you obviously, I don't know if you know you're doing it, you probably do. You probably put a lot of effort into that, but you seem to be very intentional with those that either you report into you or you work with. And so, but what do you do with the ones that just aren't getting there? How do you handle that?
We're a relationship oriented business, right? And so from my perspective, I think my career path has afforded me opportunities to really work at every level of an athletic department, from a low level employee to a mid-range employee, to a, senior administrator, right? And I think from that perspective, I think meeting people where they are is really important, right? And so you have to identify, like, hey, what does this person need? What roadblocks do they have in front of them? What's hindering them from being a rising star or rock star and all those type of things? And then how can I help them? Can I coach them, or can I position them to be in a role of success, right? And so I think meeting people where they are, understanding what their life is like on a daily basis, how can I make it better as a leader in the organization, and all those type of things.
Yeah. So a lot of people want to know, when you're in the shoes that you've been in, coaches. So leading administration is one thing. Leading coaches, that's a different animal. What's the advice? What's made you successful in that area? Because when you were in your previous institutions, you had some coaches really winning that weren't winning before. And I don't think that's just it just doesn't happen.
It didn't happen by happenstance, I'll tell you that much. But a lot of times when coaches win or coaches are successful, a lot of people take the credit for that, right? Every administration, we hired the guy, and we supported the guy, and but I think fundamentally for me, the way that I was, I cut my teeth in this industry is I worked for coaches.
That's right.
I know what their life is like on a daily basis. I was there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when they arrived. I'm there when, they're the last person leaving the building. And so I've taken that same philosophy as an administrator. Now, I will be frank, I'm not there at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore, but typically I'm probably one of the last people that leave. And so the relationships that I've built with coaches is understanding, supporting them in their low moments. And so in their high moments is when they don't need you, right? They need you the most when they're struggling or when there's a challenge and those type of things. And being a listening ear and understanding, going to their staff meetings. I think one of the things that really moved Tulane's program, or football program in particular, was the fact that, hey, I'm in staff meetings every day. It's on my calendar. If I'm there, so I understand what's happening, who's going to class, who's not, who's injured. Is there something that we need to move? Is there a scheduling issue? All those type of things. And so that as issues come to the administration, you're already ahead of the game. You're not hearing it for the first time. And so I think that's very important. And so that's really been my key to being a part of successful programs. So most people, talk about players, coaches. I'm kind of I'm kind of a coach's administrator, right? And not to say that, I defend everything that coaches do, but I understand their life, right? And I think as an administrator, it's our job to properly resource, coach, and develop coaches in subcategories to be elite and to be successful as well.
So it seems like the key, intentionality. It's you're very intentional. You get to know, whoever it is that are relying on you. You're getting to know them. And when they know that, they know you're trying to do that, and they see it. They know that you have their back. They're going to work harder for you.
Yeah, 100%. It's alignment, in the short term, it's alignment, right? And we talk about that sometimes with university presidents, but the alignment goes all the way down to the coaches, the assistant coaches, the support staff. And when you get everybody on the same page, it's really, really a powerful tool. And so when you have success, you're not surprised because the alignment's there from top down. So I would say I may be an expert in trying to develop alignment. And it's a moving target. It's something that, you don't just do it today and think that you have it. Because I've been in situations where it quickly changes. And so, it keeps you on your toes as an administrator. And that's one of the things I tell young people: be careful what you ask for, right? Because you sit in this seat and that's what it comes with. You're on your toes. You're constantly trying to develop alignment.
So how do you get alignment within the different coaches? So, every coach, it eventually you come in, they know, okay, Kortne's got my back. He wants us to be successful. But then at the same time, they're looking at, okay, football's getting this, basketball's getting this. Why am I not getting this? How do you balance the dynamic there of kind of teams looking at each other going, why is this person getting that? Why is this person getting that?
Well, I think one of the dynamics that you have to be very open and honest, right? Because, it's a quote that talks about, again, the theory of comparison is like a thief of joy,
Thief of
right?
joy.
Yeah, right. And it really is. And so I use that with coaches to say, hey, tell me your problems, right? Let's understand what your needs are and how we can address those. Your needs are not going to be the same as these needs because it's a different animal. The rules are different, right? The expectations are also different. And so, we talk about it, hey, the football coach loses a game and loses a conference championship. It's a whole lot different than the sailing coach. All right. And so the magnitude of the pressure, but also the needs, I don't want to diminish necessarily the needs of either program, right? They're just different. And so again, my good friend Graham Neff uses this analogy all the time. And I try to lead that way. As a sport administrator, sometimes it's not necessarily the distant mountain that every coach thinks you need to move. It's the small pebble in the shoe that is the most thing that's prohibitive. And so I think a lot of times I challenge administrators and people who oversee sports, move the pebbles in the shoe first, because sometimes that's all it takes. And again, it's challenged me as a leader, as a deputy athletics director, as a sport administrator, to be better. And so that's what we work and strive for every day.
So what are some, give me an example of, because FAMU weren't winning, UConn, they started winning. It's Tulane, same thing. So what are some of those pebbles that you're talking about?
So I would say the first thing is communication. Because of the way I came up in the industry, I like to go to practices. I go to practices and I'm looking and seeing, hey, who's cutting the mustard, who's not, are we coaching them right? And then what's the culture? Are the student athletes having an experience that is second to none? Are they having fun? Are we academically solvent? Is the coaching philosophy aligned with kind of the personnel and things that we have? And so I like to dissect those things, but I like to be present. I think it's very important that student athletes today see you. Student athletes of color, I think it's very important that they see you, that they understand what you're doing and that you're working for them. And then I think the culture is defined by the top. And so for my philosophy, good and good enough, good is the enemy of great. And so I think everywhere we've gone, we've tried to demonstrate that we're going to punch a little bit above our weight. And I'll use FAMU as an example. I think some of the work that we did there was just absolutely remarkable for who we were.
Absolutely.
HBCU that had a rich history that was negative history. And so I think in our time there, we kind of rewrote history a little bit and defined some things. You guys were part of that at Peak Sports. In fact, we were, very much so a mom and pop, operation on the marketing and corporate partnerships perspective.
Yeah.
We professionalized that, right?
Yep.
And so that culture, now there's an expectation within the department. Everything is professionalized. There, being on time, being dressed to, there's an expectation to have follow-up meetings and open communication, and then expectation that we want to be better than everybody else in our conference, in our league. And we want to be a national brand. We did that there. And so I think leading that way, as if you want to be elite, but it starts with the top. And I think defining culture is a big piece of that, because when you get everybody rolling in the same direction, these engines that we call athletic departments can be special. They can be unique. And the moments that they can create for an institution, whether that be alumni or donors. I'll never forget when we walked into AT&T Stadium, for forever, people, Tulane didn't have fans, nobody goes, and with 55,000 people in AT&T Stadium, and it was a watershed moment for our institution, our board, our president, everybody to understand that this is a special moment, but it defined our institution and really, I think, galvanized the academic core like never before, focused on athletic interests, which probably hadn't been around for 80 years. And so to be a part of that and that catalyst and to support that team and those coaches and this administration in that way was probably one of the most exciting moments of my tenure.
Yeah. I think the takeaway here is setting expectations for any leaders out there listening. What are the expectations, setting the vision, and then telling people how they're a part of that vision, how without them, we can't get towards it. If you don't have that intentionality, if you don't get to know them, if you don't have those conversations, that can't happen. And those are kind of those pebbles you talked about. And all of a sudden, when that vision's set and people know, okay, this is how I can help, this is how I'm part of it, this is how I'm one of those oars in that boat, that's when you get everybody rowing in the same direction.
Absolutely. And I think, to your point as well, a lot of times, we chase titles in this industry, and, I'm the deputy AD or senior associate, and those don't matter anymore. This is what I tell people: you can either lead or you can't. And I think right now we're in an inflection point in our industry where people are being challenged to lead. And regardless of your title, regardless if you're, the entry-level employee or, again, vice president, director of athletics, I think it's incumbent that you show and demonstrate your abilities to do so and to motivate people and to inspire people to do the work in this industry. We have a responsibility to the young people that we serve, right? And that is to, one, educate them, and to create a transformational student athletic experience, the second to none, graduate them. And I think right now, again, challenging people to be leaders in spaces, because they're needed. Our industry is going through a unique evolution right now. And so I challenge people to step up and be leaders. We get paid to hit the curveball. And so, and trust me, there's a many that have been thrown right now. But stepping up and being a leader, regardless of what your title is, I don't chase titles anymore. I chase mission. I chase meaningful responsibility. And then quite frankly, to be a part of a good team. I think those things are critically important in today's age of college athletics.
Yeah, that's great. So leaders listening, I think, like Kortne said, if you, just because you have a certain title is not going to earn the respect of your group. It's not going to get people motivated. It's not going to inspire them. The only way to do that is through your actions, and that takes intentionality. You owe your people an obligation. And it's going to be really hard to be successful in this industry if whoever you're responsible for isn't working for you the same way you're working for them. And so this is a really, really good conversation.
No, appreciate it, Wesley. Thank you much for having me.
Kortne, Gosha, well, I appreciate it, man. It's good catching up.
This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.